The old security guard didn't look at me the way people usually do. Most people glance, nod politely, and move on. But this man, he stared. Not curious, not friendly, something else. His eyes moved from me, to my phone screen, and then back to my face. Then he asked quietly, "Is that your wife?" I nodded without thinking. That's when he leaned closer and whispered something that made the air feel colder. "You need to see this. My name is Daniel, and up until that moment, I believed I had a simple life. Not perfect, just simple. I worked long hours as a project manager for a construction firm downtown. Most of my days were spreadsheets, meetings, and site visits. The kind of routine life that slowly becomes invisible. But there was one thing that always made the long days worth it. My wife, Laura. Laura had this calm presence that made everything feel steady. We met 9 years earlier at a bookstore cafe. I remember the exact moment. She was sitting near the window with a thick novel and a cup of coffee she never seemed to drink. I spilled mine, all over the table. I was embarrassed, apologizing too much, trying to clean the mess with napkins that dissolved into wet paper. She laughed, not the polite kind of laugh people use to make you feel better. A real one, warm, honest. That laugh stayed with me. Within a year we were inseparable. Within 2, we were married. Laura worked remotely as a graphic designer. She loved quiet spaces, soft music, and plants that she somehow kept alive despite forgetting to water them. She trusted me, I trusted her, and for years, that trust never even crossed my mind. Because when trust is real, you don't notice it. You just live inside it. About 6 months ago, things started changing. Nothing dramatic, just small things. Laura began working later hours. She said new clients were demanding international deadlines, different time zones. It made sense. Some nights I'd come home and see the glow of her laptop lighting the living room while she sat cross-legged on the couch, focused on the screen. I'd kiss her on the forehead. "How's work?" "Busy," she'd say, smiling tiredly. Then she'd close the laptop quickly, like someone shutting a window before rain gets in. I never questioned it. Marriage teaches you something important. Respect each other's space. Or at least, that's what I believed. Then there was the gym. Laura had never been a gym person before. She preferred yoga videos at home or evening walks around the neighborhood. But suddenly she had a membership. Trying something new, she said casually. She started going 3 evenings a week. Sometimes 4. Again, nothing unusual. People change habits all the time. Still, there were little details that stuck in my mind longer than they should have. Like how she bought new workout clothes but never seemed sweaty when she returned. Or how she began locking her phone. Before, Laura would leave it anywhere, the kitchen counter, the sofa, the bathroom sink. Now it stayed face down. Always. At the time, I told myself I was imagining things. Because doubt is uncomfortable, and the mind will do almost anything to avoid it. The night everything shifted started like any other Thursday. I left work late after a frustrating meeting that seemed to stretch forever. Traffic downtown was slow, and by the time I reached the parking garage near our apartment building, it was almost 9 p.m. Laura had texted earlier. "Working late tonight, don't wait up." Nothing unusual. I parked the car and stepped out into the cool evening air. The garage lights hummed softly above rows of silent vehicles. That's when I noticed the security guard watching me. He was older, probably late 60s, with gray hair under a navy cap. I'd seen him around before but never spoken to him. As I walked toward the elevator, my phone buzzed. A notification. Laura had sent a message. But instead of opening it immediately, I glanced up, and saw the guard still looking at me. Not casually, carefully, almost like he was deciding something. I slowed down. "Everything okay?" I asked. He hesitated. Then he pointed toward my phone. "That your wife texting?" I frowned slightly but nodded. "Yeah." The guard stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I don't mean to interfere," he said quietly. "But, is that her in your phone wallpaper?" I looked down at the screen. It was the photo I always kept there. Laura standing on a beach during our anniversary trip 2 years earlier. Wind in her hair, sunlight in her eyes. "Yeah," I said. For a moment, the guard didn't speak. Then he leaned closer and whispered something that made my chest tighten. "You need to see this. At first I thought he meant something was wrong upstairs. Maybe an emergency in the building. But instead, he gestured toward the small security office beside the elevator. Just a minute, he said. His voice wasn't dramatic. That's what made it unsettling. It sounded reluctant, like a man who didn't want to be involved but felt he had to be. I followed him inside. The room was small, filled with monitors showing different camera angles from around the building, lobby doors, parking levels, elevators, hallways. The guard sat slowly in his chair and moved the mouse. I've worked security for 30 years, he said quietly. You learn to recognize people. I didn't respond. My stomach had started to feel heavy. He clicked one of the screens. The footage rewound slightly. Grainy security video appeared, the entrance of our apartment building. A timestamp showed yesterday evening. 6:42 p.m. The door opened, and Laura walked in. She looked exactly the way she had when she left the house earlier that day, gray jacket, black tote bag, hair tied back. My chest loosened slightly. Okay, so what? But the guard didn't stop the footage. Laura stepped aside near the entrance, and waited. 5 seconds passed, 10. Then another person walked through the door behind her. A man, tall, wearing a dark coat. At first the camera angle hid his face. But what caught my attention wasn't him. It was Laura, because she smiled at him. Not the tired smile she'd been giving me lately. Something softer, warmer, more familiar. They stood close, closer than strangers usually do. And then Laura reached out, and touched his arm. The guard paused the video. The room suddenly felt very quiet. I stared at the frozen image on the screen. My brain trying to find a reasonable explanation. Coworker, client, neighbor, anything. But the guard slowly moved the mouse again. There's more, he said. And as the footage began playing again, I felt something inside my chest begin to sink. Because the next thing I saw was Laura reaching for the elevator button, and the man standing beside her, already knowing exactly which floor to press. When the elevator doors closed on the screen, the security guard paused the footage again. The room felt smaller than it had a minute earlier. I stared at the frozen image, Laura standing beside that man, her hand still hovering near the elevator panel, his finger already pressing a button. My floor, our floor. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. It felt like watching strangers who only looked like people I knew. The guard leaned back slowly in his chair. I didn't want to assume anything, he said quietly. But when I saw your phone, I recognized her. My throat felt dry. How many times? I asked. It took me a second to realize the words had come from my own mouth. The guard hesitated. Then he sighed and turned back to the monitor. Enough that I noticed. He clicked through a few recordings. Different dates appeared in the corner of the screen. Tuesday, Friday, last night, each time the same pattern. Laura entering the building, waiting near the door, the same man arriving shortly after. And every time, they walked to the elevator together. I felt like the ground had shifted under my feet. Because betrayal isn't loud when you first see it. It's quiet, quiet enough that your mind tries to protect you from it. They could just be friends, I said. Even as I said it, the words sounded fragile. The guard didn't argue, he simply moved the footage forward. The elevator doors opened on our floor. Laura stepped out first. The man followed. They walked down the hallway. Toward apartment 4B, my apartment, our apartment. The guard stopped the video before they reached the door. He didn't need to show me the rest. I already knew. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Finally he cleared his throat. I'm sorry, he said. I nodded slowly, not because I accepted it, but because I didn't know what else to do. I left the security office in silence. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt longer than usual. Every second felt stretched. Every thought felt heavier. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was misunderstanding something. Maybe the man was a coworker helping her with work. Maybe he just lived on our floor. Maybe, but deep down, another voice had started whispering something I didn't want to hear. The elevator doors opened. The hallway was quiet. The same hallway I'd walked down thousands of times without thinking. Tonight it felt unfamiliar. My footsteps echoed softly as I walked toward our apartment. 4B. The door looked exactly the same as always. The same small scratch near the handle from when we moved furniture in years ago. The same welcome mat Laura had picked out because she said it looked simple but warm. The lights inside were on. I could see the glow under the door. My heart began beating harder. But I forced myself to breathe normally. Because whatever was happening, I needed to see it with my own eyes. I unlocked the door. The smell of Laura's lavender candles filled the living room. Soft music was playing, the kind she liked to work with in the evenings. Everything looked ordinary. The couch, The plants near the window. Her laptop on the coffee table. For a moment, I almost felt relieved. Maybe the security footage had been old. Maybe the man had only come once. Maybe. Then I heard voices. From the kitchen. Laura's voice. And a man's. I froze. Not out of fear, but because the sound of her laughing hit me harder than anything else. I hadn't heard that laugh in weeks. Not like that. Not the warm one from the bookstore cafe years ago. This one was light, comfortable, intimate. I took a slow step toward the kitchen. The voices became clearer. I told you he works late, Laura was saying. Her tone was relaxed, certain. He won't be home yet. The man chuckled softly. Still feels strange being here. Laura replied, you'll get used to it. Each word felt like a small crack forming inside my chest. I stood just outside the kitchen doorway. Part of me wanted to walk in immediately. Another part wanted to listen. Because sometimes the truth reveals itself before you're ready. The man spoke again. Are you sure about all this? There was a pause. I heard Laura move, maybe setting something down on the counter. Then she answered quietly. I've been sure for months. Months. The word echoed in my mind. The man lowered his voice slightly. And Daniel, hearing my name from a stranger's mouth made something inside me twist. Laura sighed. Not with guilt, not with hesitation, with patience. Daniel trusts me, she said. The words were simple, but they carried a weight I wasn't prepared for. Too much, she added softly. Silence filled the kitchen. Then the man asked the question I think even Laura wasn't expecting. So, when are you going to tell him? I held my breath, because whatever she said next would reveal everything. Laura didn't answer immediately. Instead I heard the quiet clink of glasses. Maybe wine, maybe water. Then she spoke, calmly. Soon. Another pause. But not until everything is ready. Everything. Ready. My mind raced, trying to understand what that meant. The man sounded uncertain. And if he finds out before that? Laura laughed softly again. That same warm laugh I had fallen in love with. He won't, she said. There was complete confidence in her voice. Then she added something that made my stomach drop. He never looks closely at anything. I stood there in the hallway, listening to the woman I loved describe me like a stranger. Like someone predictable. Like someone easy. The man seemed to relax. Well, he said, I guess we still have time then. Laura responded gently, yes. And then, I heard footsteps, coming toward the hallway, toward the doorway where I stood. I realized in that moment that I had only two choices. Step inside the kitchen, or walk away before they saw me. But before I could decide, Laura's voice came from just a few feet away. Wait, she said suddenly. Her footsteps stopped. The man asked, what is it? And Laura whispered something that made the blood run cold in my veins. Daniel's car. There was a long pause. Then she said quietly, I think he's home.